can you hear me? Please unmute and speak to us. Do the rest of the speakers and
No, I can't hear him. I can't hear him as well.
No, he is muted.
I think he dropped.
Okay, let me call just a minute. Okay, Clever Ivans, please unmute and speak to us. You have 3 minutes.
How are you, everyone on the platform? I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we
Hello,
can.
can you?
Yes, we can.
Kindly let Mr. Ronald mute his microphone so that he can allow other people to come through. I think that's the problem. But as I'm submitting my submission, hope the platform is all about what is the struggle. And so, is it right that it has to be what is the meaning of the struggle?
Let me rephrase it for you. I think you joined late, but we are trying to deconstruct the Ugandan struggle. And if you were not here before, from the start, we agreed, oh, okay, I think I imposed my idea on you guys, but I have observed that the Ugandan struggle is not just one. There are so many layers that, about the struggle, and it means different things to different people. So, Gwenga Ivan, what does the struggle mean to you? But I know you're going to go into, it's the dictatorship and all that. We've been there. So I asked the question, should we abolish the Ugandan state and start afresh and go back to, our organized kingdoms and communities and all that? Has the Ugandan independent in quotes, has the Ugandan independent state failed? Should we abolish it, or should we try to reform what we already have and try to work out the challenges?
Okay, I got you clear. Yeah, of course, we have no ways of abolishing it. Like, if we try to abolish it, that means we have to put the country down. Like, we go in those steps of like Sudan and Libya, of which it shouldn't be the step we have to take. But as for the meaning of the struggle and what we should do, I think we have to understand. I think we have to understand the meaning of the struggle. It is in two ways. That is the change. In the form of the struggle, we have two things. We have the political wing and the so-called military wing. If I talk about the military wing, I mean, for example, currently, I mean the side of the foot soldiers, which is people power. And if I talk about the political wing, I'm talking about the MPs and the political leaders. Of course, the leaders and the struggleists are different. Where do we need the leaders? We need the leaders in terms of the times of elections. And after the election, for example, in the government we are facing problems of torture and what, and then there is no diplomacy in the kind of elections that we are conducting and democracy. That is, if we go in the election, for example, 2021, the NUP won the elections and they were denied access to the higher stake of the chair of the country. So that's where the struggle starts, and that's where the military wing comes in. We have to try all means. That is, we have to make change. If we are to make change, we have to be with coordinations. Because for the political leaders, for them, they come like in form of business. That's why you see someone can sell a house, sell something to get money so that he can go into parliament and then he starts getting money. By all means, that's why you see they're getting the handshakes, they're getting those Thanksgiving things like that. So in the terms of the struggle, we don't need politicians, but we need leaders. Because the leaders, for example, we have His Excellency Robert Chagulanyi Ssentamu. He's leading a cause. And you see he's facing it like as if he's facing it alone with the foot soldiers and the people on the ground. The MPs are comfortably seated there eating their money. So we shouldn't consider those people in terms of the struggle. They will only come in when it comes to business. That is when the politics has started. Like, for example, right now, they have started coming in. And they have not been there because we told them they are arresting people because of putting on red berets. Where are you? Can you please move out of the parliament before the budget is passed? Because if the opposition is not there, nothing cannot go there in terms of law. They can pass it, but illegally. Of course, if it goes illegally, there are some pillars we have to attach ourselves. So in terms of the struggle, we have to try all means. That is after being denied access to the higher chair of the governance, and it has been won like last time. How comes that if this time we win again and they try to snatch the chair away from us, what are we going to do? We need to be prepared right now. We need to be coordinated. We need to make open groups like in coordinations, and we have to be open so that they cannot call us terrorists and so. For that matter, therefore, we need to coordinate ourselves. We need to lose what we call fear. Because if we fear, there is no way we shall come out. Demonstrations are not supposed to be out of the struggle. They are the leading pressure groups that will help us. Because whenever you demonstrate, it attracts the attention of different people that are ready and willing to help us. If we don't demonstrate, we will not get any chance. For the terms of going back to the kingdoms and then the leadership of the kingdoms, yes, it is good. But if we have not changed anything on top, even that one will not work, because we are talking about the kingdom and what? We are talking about the federal government. We have to set a government which is neutral and democratic, so that we can propose that let's have the federal government, but it has to come from the central government. Coming from the central government, that means there has to be democracy. If democracy is not there, there's no way you're going to go back to that thing of federal government, because federal government works, but not in a country like Uganda, because a country like Uganda is a bit small. You know? So me, I think we have to try all means and we lose fear. If it is to stand up, let's try and stand up. That's the only way we shall overcome these people, and then we shall set a democratic pace where everything shall be discussed openly and shall be gone as per laws. The rule of law will come in when there is democracy. If there is no democracy, there is no way the rule of law will work. It will only be business as we see. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan, for your submission. So you say we still need a central government, a neutral government. But you see, since independence, we've had, I think it has been central governments and we are still grappling with the same challenges. But thank you so much for your submission. Another question, which is not meant for any of you to answer, but the question I ask myself then is, what is democracy? What is this thing we call democracy? Everyone says, we need to fight for democracy. But what does democracy mean? Because when you try to probe further, you find there are also different structures and elements of democracy. So I'm going to go back to the good girl. I have also sent a message to Dr. Jacob Katsime. Please check your DM. I sent you a message. Good girl, do you think that with all the challenges, with all the struggles, because from all the submissions, there are different forms of struggles, there are different things we are up against, but majority of the speakers would agree we must overthrow the dictatorship. If the dictatorship goes, then we shall be able to rebuild. But do you think we should maintain the Ugandan state the way it is? Should we dismantle it and start from scratch to build again? Should we go back to our kingdoms or whatever and live trying to have one centralized form of governance?
Well, I think if we got a good leadership and we revive our institutions and we have working institutions in place, I don't believe in going back to the kingdoms or throwing everything and restarting again. It is bad, but at least there's somewhere we could begin from. I think it is best we work on our institutions, we work on everything. And then I think that's better than going back to maybe federal system or kingdoms or whatever you are trying to say. I think we can still do with this if we have a better system that works.
Okay, thank you so much for your submission. I hope we get that better system soon. So I'm still trying to get a few more speakers on board. And okay, let me ask Cynthia, you've been here from the start. Do you think we should maintain and try to reform the current state that we have, or should we just dismantle and start afresh? Because yes, Museveni after 40 years has well, I don't want to use the F word, but I don't know what better word to use to describe what has happened to us in those 40 years. And so we are in that mess.
Yes.
For 40 years, but even before the 40 years, our parents have also been grappling with, different challenges. Of course, the times change, economic times change, everything, but still, Uganda as a state, the issues keep recurring, regardless of who is here. It's just that this guy has overstayed. So should we, as we remove him, should we dismantle the whole state and build afresh, or should we just try to reform and build from this whole broken system?
Okay. Thank you so much, Ashona. So, this dismantling everything sounds tempting, but I think it's also counterproductive, because going back to pre-colonial times would not be ideal. But I believe that we can make reforms. We can make the effort to educate the masses on the ground, do massive civic education for all the people to be more empowered and be more involved in the affairs of our nation. Because as we speak, I think I would say that we have this sense, we have a sense of detachment among the masses. Like, a few of us have awakened, but then it's up to us to awaken the others as well, so that they feel like they should contribute to the affairs of our country. Because I know this is not about March to Parliament, it's a different topic, but definitely we cannot speak about the struggles of Uganda and we don't talk about corruption and we don't talk about that topic because I believe in a way it's also one of our struggles in Uganda. So recently we had March to Parliament and I could see like the overall scenario in the country is like we have so many people detached from the affairs of the country. While some of us feel like, yes, we have this urgency where we have to go out and march and speak up and raise our voices, not everyone feels the same. And we have to acknowledge that in our space, that not everyone is ready right now to go out and all is even motivated. I wouldn't say motivated, but I think not everyone feels this urgency that some of us have, that yes, we have to speak up because this is not the route we want to take. We need to tackle the poor governance issues we have in our country immediately. Not everyone feels the same. And I think it's our responsibility, those of us who know that this is really urgent, that this is really urgent and it has to be handled, for us to go out of our way to educate the masses. Now, that's also another challenge altogether, because how do we do this? How do we go about this process of educating the masses and awakening them to be on our level as well?
Okay.
So I would, yes.
Cynthia,
Yeah, so that's
thank you for your submission. We maintain and try to reform, and then we do massive civic education to make sure that we are all at the same level. That's a very important point. So I'm going to call Dr. Jacob Katsima. He's been here right from the start. He is the reason I thought about attempting to deconstruct the Ugandan struggle. And from what I've heard from at least most of us is let Museveni go, and then we try to rebuild, let this and that. So let's hear from the man himself, the one who inspired this space. Dr. Jacob, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ashana, or Anna. Thank you for the space, especially. I want to say from the beginning that I think I want to resist the honor of having sparked the conversation, because there are many Ugandans, I think, who have been saying this, but perhaps had not managed to. The moment was not yet, ripe for this space to come, and perhaps I am just part of those many Ugandans. So I don't know what should I say? What do you want me to talk about, Anya? Because I think I said most of the things I wanted to say in that article, but you can perhaps give me a specific question.
Thank you, Jacob. Yeah, you said most of the things you wanted to say in the article, but I don't think everyone read the article. So one, you diagnosed the fact that we are faced with an ideological crisis. And freedom means different things to different people, leave alone the fights about the strategy and how we shall attain that freedom. But you talk about an ideological crisis, so would you like to elaborate more on that? Because that is what has actually informed this space, trying to deconstruct what that struggle for freedom or the struggles for freedom are. So could you speak to the ideological crisis you diagnosed or observed in that article, in that article? Yeah.
Okay, thank you so very much. Thank you. I think one of the things that we should see, just even by the existence of this space at this moment, it's weekend, people should be hanging out, and they're in the space, listening. It means there is a very countrywide desire for some form of freedom, for liberation. People are desiring liberation, freedom, whatever that means for them. And perhaps even this idea that we are in the struggle comes from that place of things are not right, things are not proper, things are not moving the way they would, desire to see them move. And so they want something, they are yearning for something. They can't touch it, they can't see it, they do not know how to it's intangible for them, but they can see it from what they can feel it when they have experienced it. They just have failed to give it a name, and perhaps we call it a struggle, and so this, for me, an ideological crisis comes from the fact that and for me, the article came from this place where the different activists were fighting each other. And they had not actually started the real fight we saw in the last 2 weeks over money and accountability and so on. It was just starting, but I could sense it. I did literature. I'm a student of literature, so I know I can read between and beyond the lines. So I could feel it. And I'm also privileged to be friends with some of the activists. So I always also know the unsaid. So I could sense it, that we were losing focus. And we're losing focus for the one reason that when we are in a struggle, like let's say we are in a struggle, regardless of our disagreements, which are always going to happen, there is something we shouldn't lose. So no matter how you fight, let at least sometimes the fight be internal, so that when you go out, the dictatorship understands that these people are united in the thing they are looking for. And so I said that we are in an ideological crisis because the kind of fight, internal struggle within the activist forum or within the opposition or within all those who are seeking of change, freedom, was not defined. The kind of fight we were engaged in seemed to not give me an idea that these are people who have a very concrete idea of what they're fighting for. Anna, when you go to, when we are fighting for independence here in the 1960s, one of the things that is happening is Ugandans are saying, away with the white man. And that is the struggle for freedom. It was a question of citizenship. The struggle was a question of citizenship because Ugandans felt that they were second-class citizens in their own country. And so all they wanted was the white man out. And the white man indeed went. Soon, what happened is that those who took over power tried to define citizenship, this same question, around either their ethnic groups or their religious groups. So you find that we are trying to form, for example, a Protestant republic where it's only Anglicans that can get positions of power. And that has continued to date. You find that it's a northern Uganda axis, Obote, even the fight to remove government remained, for example, in Uganda. And then there were the Westerners, and at that time the Westerners were both central Uganda, which is Uganda, and Western Uganda now. They feel like we are not part of this. And that's why for them, it was also a question of feeling like second-class citizens in the same country. And that's why Museveni was able to mobilize Uganda very well, mobilize the Westerners very well, mobilize the Banyarwanda who were at the verge of being expelled from Uganda, and tell them, if you fight and win, you're getting citizenship. And indeed, for the first few years, that happened. So everyone was engaged in this struggle. And they fought and won, and of course took over power. And of course, because they did not reform the state in concrete ways, they have since descended into the thing they were fighting against, and they do not know even how to solve it. And for us today, we failed to get to define what a struggle means. You can see how you ask this question to everyone. What does the struggle mean for you? And everyone is saying, if corruption, like different things, all those are really symptoms of the larger problem. Let me tell you, if you do not fight and make sure that the people get positions or, administration, power, politics out of merit, and people are getting there because of, their attachment to the state, maybe because of their religious affiliation, ethnic affiliation, Twaziranaka and so on and so forth. What you're going to have is all this that we see, mediocrity of the highest order in officers. So if you do not get to define a struggle and say, how do we see all these symptoms we are seeing, corruption, this misrule, this police brutality, where is it coming from? It's because it's coming from a place where a particular kind of people have built a system, and they know the moment this system collapses, them and their kin are gone. And so if you fail to see where the problem is, you keep fighting the symptoms. You fight the symptoms. And this article was coming from that place, that when you fight the symptoms, you fail to know that actually these symptoms are experienced differently by different people. Jacob Katumsime here does not gain from the state in any way. But I know that I've entered offices, and when someone says my name, they feel they should, should serve me quite quick. Like they feel like they should serve me on whatever I want because of my name. And, even while I am not gaining from this state, I experience the struggle differently. I must confess, and I know there are many who do that. You, Anna, you might be recently you've been facing criticism that you're part of the regime. You're fighting for, against the activism and fighting against, all the opposition. That you're part of the regime anyway. Partly it's perhaps because of where you belong in terms of the ethnic mapping. That's one. And two, perhaps of how you experience the regime. People feel like perhaps you don't experience the regime like they are. They feel like, you can fight against this government and you get the opportunity to travel and you are far away from the regime, And then for them, they cannot. For them, they have to go to Dubai and fight and work all these menial jobs and, die there and so on. So people feel like you experience their struggle different ways. So one of the things I think that is failing us as activists is we are failing to have a concrete understanding of what the struggle means. The thing of militarism, if we capture power tomorrow, we shall find ourselves having to rely on the gun again, What are you going to rule this country with arrows and spears? No, you're going to use guns. So the problem then would not be guns. The problem would be on the people who use these guns. For what purpose are they using the guns? Can't we have a military and you never see this military in homes of people on the streets, just meandering, doing nothing except, terrorizing the streets? So completely and also, I think we failed to define what the struggle means. And I think that one of the ways we should start thinking is start reading literatures. Start read revolutionary literatures and get ideas. One of the questions I always ask myself is, what do these leaders of ours read? Bobi Wine is one of the most, important activists of our time. Sometimes he has, said something or done something, and I'm like, who do you read? Like, what are you doing? Who do you think with? I think we are not thinking together, and we shouldn't think together. But at least when it comes to struggle, people should think alongside each other, inform each other, read people who have engaged in these struggles before. The books are there. You can access them online, phones. Like the struggle can be, this is the moment, especially now with, in social media, a moment to use to refine what freedom means for us. I think I should stop there.
Thank you so much. You've done justice to reframing the conversation. So we still have issues on the conceptual and ideological clarity on what freedom means. We still have a lot of work to do. In your article, you talked about the disconnect between online activists and I think you alluded to Kiseka market activists. Is that something you'd like to talk about and maybe share insights on how we can try to connect? Because this knowledge and everything we're exchanging here, I feel like it shouldn't really end on these spaces. We should find ways of disseminating this information further into our community. So you talked about the disconnect between online activists and Kiseka market or Mama Mbogas or whatever name we can give them.
Okay, so look, Anna, whenever this government has been threatened by a protest, one of the things that has always happened is deployment. It deploys, it deploys on the streets, but especially in downtown Kampala, Kiseka market, Parkyard, Nachivubo, it always deploys in those particular places because it knows that the struggle, whereas it can be defined by the elite, it is achieved by the downtrodden. Those who are, not that the elite are not downtrodden, but the elite experience this struggle differently, Anna, they experience it differently. The elite will go to the front line and their wives are asking, how far, where have you reached? In case of anything, I will come, And indeed, when the elite experience the brutality of the state, they are going to be taken to IHK, to, all these very good hospitals. We are easily going to get bail for ourselves and so on and so forth. This recent walk to Parliament, despite its power in highlighting, the rottenness in that Parliament, it failed to mobilize downtown Kampala. Because it's downtown Kampala that terrorizes this government always. When Bobi Wine was arrested last time, he was, outside Kampala. The place that shook this government was downtown Kampala. It was Kiseka market here, It was not our, upscale offices and so on, Kololo and so forth. No, it was that place. So you mobilize such a walk to Parliament where that every problem we've tried to suffer this far partly arises from this Parliament. And the people who are most affected, the most downtrodden, are not part. How? How do you explain that? Partly it's because the elite are disconnected from the downtrodden Kiseka market, from my mother down in Imbarara. They are disconnected. And how do you connect to the truth? It is to interpret these things for them. At least, you have to demystify what corruption means. When you say corruption, what does it mean? Define it for the person who has not gone to school to understand it. Anna, if I should ask you, what is corruption in the language you understand well, local language you understand well here in Uganda, either Lunyankole or Luganda, whichever language, what is corruption?
Like the definition or just the name of corruption?
No, the translation. The translation.
Corruption.
Yes.
In Runyankole Ruchiga, Obushomankuzi.
Mm-hmm. Obushomankuzi. Good. And in Luganda?
Obuliwenguzi.
Obuliwenguzi. Yeah. So all this is what we need to do. So that when you go down to the people, when you're discussing, they do not just hear the word corruption. They know what it means. So when you say corruption, their immediate translation is not a articulation of the word corruption. It is when you say corruption, they know you are talking about obuliwenguzi, and it means someone is eating from you, like at the least. And this is for lack of a better way to put this. That when you say corruption, what registers into the person's mind is that someone is eating from you, is taking away what should be feeding you, feeding your children, grandchildren, and children that perhaps you'll never see great-grandchildren. So that it means something for them. When Bobi Wine was arrested, it meant something for the people because for them, he was the hope. So arresting him meant their hopes had been frustrated and they were willing to put themselves on the line. This should be the case. That the way the elite interpret corruption, because for us, all those who like to define ourselves as elite, when you mention the word corruption, I know what it means. I know that someone is taking what he or she does not deserve, is taking it out of their networks. It's a cartel, a cabal, all those things. I understand them. But the person down, we are walking to parliament, it was an anti-corruption walk, not even anti-government walk. And people just to say it's not an anti-government walk. It was an anti-government walk. You say we are walking to parliament. It's an anti-corruption, walk, and so that it registers, so that the person down in Chiseka knows that we are going to bury it. But when you find that you are in two struggles, then you can have many battlefronts in a struggle, but they should be connected by an ideology, and this ideology has to be translatable. It has to be translatable. That whoever is engaged in making their lives better in this country, then a struggle achieves for them one thing. The Americans are always talking about the American dream. And what is the American dream? When they try to talk about it, they say it's the awareness that anyone can go to America and make it in life. What is the Ugandan dream? What is the Ugandan dream? For a generation that has not, had the privilege to have an education, a generation that has suffered, wars all the time, for a generation that continues to face, military overall, what is the Ugandan dream? So the opposition, the political activism in Uganda today fails to give us a definition of what the future looks like. And let me tell you, we can even create a fantastic image of the future to be able to move forward. Failure to do that, people will feel like, what we are doing, they'll give us solidarity, but they will not give us, radical revolutionary support to change things, Yeah.
Thank you so much. You make great submissions. I don't know if I am even able to just paraphrase them, but you've spoken to actually what the question of the day was, trying to deconstruct the Ugandan struggle, and what we've been doing here is trying to define it. That's why I was asking individuals. I saw people, my friend Martin, setting a different question, but the reason I was asking what does the struggle mean to you was to try and see if we are at the same level, because we got different ideas, different concerns from different people, and I think one of the things that has come out from you, Dr. Jacob, Dr. Katumsime, from Cynthia, from the Good Girl, and all the other people that spoke previously, was we need to educate other people, like share the gospel about the struggle, about the fruit, about what we are fighting for. But I found it important that we ask ourselves and try to deconstruct what the struggle means, because at this point, really, there are so many layers. You call them symptoms, but I think there are layers, different layers of the struggle, and it's up to us to take it to the next level. Maybe the question of the elite, if you could actually help and define what do you mean by elite? Because I think elite is a term that has been used and misused in Uganda. Those who sometimes point at the elite, but they're also elite when they want to jump out of responsibility. Everyone blames the elite. Dr. Besde will blame elites, but if we had to look at the working definition of elites, he could fall under elite. So to you, Jacob, define elite in this term, rather in the Ugandan context, from what we are talking about. Who are the elites and who are not the elites? Try to make that distinction.
I think that's a hard question because, there are different ways to think about this. So the Ugandan elite actually is not that they qualify to be called an elite when you think about it, but they want to define themselves as an elite, partly to separate themselves from the rest of society. And because the Ugandan elite, what defines them? It's the education, the kind of cars they drive, the kind of funds they hold. Like this is how they define themselves. Like it's something they take as an honor. They claim it. They're educated, they hold positions of power, that even if they're in the opposition, they are still able to survive, They are still able to survive because they have jobs. They can be at the university like me here, seated in the university, speaking all this good English, and that's all. That's how they define themselves. And in fact, even us who are very bitter with them, that's how we define them. This particular group that has, amidst the crisis of our country, managed to make some money, take their children to good schools, also get an education, have businesses that sometimes are international businesses, have contacts, relatives abroad, that they have some comfort They have some comfort. So I think this is the definition we have given our elite, But elites in other societies mean something else. It can be a class that rules. It can be this very, the elite can be actually even an ethnic group. It can, so for example, can you say the Banyakaya are an elite group? No, because there are very many uneducated, poor people, They are not. The Ugandan elite are both in the opposition and in government. So the elite as a category that we use, it's always to feel good about ability to define the other that perhaps sometimes we don't agree with or sometimes we feel has let us down. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much. So I'm going to take on 2 more people and then close the space. We've been here for more than 3 hours. So Musazi Namiti, please unmute and speak to us.
Thank you very much, Anna, for giving me the opportunity to share my views with everyone on this space. I'm going to be brief, but what I want to say is that we still have a lot of challenges. And I think the challenges we have a lot to do with not having institutions. We think that leaders they have our interests at heart, that they can do the best for us just because they are saying they can do so. I was listening to Clever saying that there is a difference between leaders and politicians, and National Unity Platform is a leader. He's going to do a lot for Ugandans. He's promised to do a lot for Ugandans. But I think it is too early for us to say that just because Robert Kyagulanyi is promising he's going to do great things for Uganda, he will do great things. When Yoweri Museveni came to power, before he even came to things, along with people he fought to remove Milton Obote from power. They have been in power for many, many years. They have just messed up things. So my point is that until we have institutions, strong institutions in place, and I don't see this happening, and then to have poor leadership, because people do not do good things just because they have been elected. There has got to be something that forces them to do that. Either there is reward for that or there is punishment for that. The corruption that we've seen in Uganda is rampant because many people who are corrupt just get away with it. If there is a price to pay for being corrupt, very few people would be corrupt. So whatever we do, whatever happens or might have happened, everything will rely heavily on institutions. Of course, you are not going to have institutions when Yoweri Museveni is still clinging to power. He has to go. But when Museveni leaves, let's say Bobi Wine is leading Uganda, which in my humble opinion is highly unlikely, and as long as there is Muhoozi Kainerugaba and others, even if Bobi Wine comes to power, you will see a new group of leaders now scrambling for our resources, mansions in places such as Nakasero. And the woman who sells a Jobio Nakati in makeshift markets in Kampala will continue to suffer. So change of leadership is not going to change things for the better overnight. That's my contribution. Thank you very much for giving me to share my views.
Thank you so much for your contribution. You say change of leadership will not fix things overnight. We need strong institutions, and I really agree, because whenever I think about change, regime change, and all that, I hope this doesn't have me arrested, but each time I'm thinking about change, I'm not just looking at one man going. I keep wondering, we do not have a national army, we have a customized army. How are we going to get our own army? How are we going to have our own strong institutions? So that's a good that's a good point to reflect on. So I'm going to take the last person. I was supposed to really get onto another call, so we can't have, I see there are so many more requests, but I'm going to take Ategeka James Amoti. You are going to be our last speaker. Please unmute.
Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope I'm audible enough. Well, mine is something simple I wanted to put across that as we're looking at struggle in Uganda, I want us to understand that the term struggle is not something that we just come overnight and throw it to the world. Yeah, because most people, what comes in their mind when they hear struggle is actually just removing the president, the current president Museveni. To me, putting up a struggle in Uganda would be coming up with our structure, our organization structure, which looks at basically service delivery. Yes? Yeah, so from the word go, we must have clear service delivery. And it's really not going to be something easy. Because having a country where service is being put up to the last person, where there's no corruption, ain't something easy. Yes? So in order to achieve this, it's going to require me, it's going to require you, each and everybody in their own capacities, to actually pick on what they can. Yeah? And by picking on what they can, I literally mean, in your own capacity, what are you able to do to stop corruption? Yes? And if you're the same person who's going to be caught on the roadside and you are placing a 5,000 in the traffic man's hands, you get my point. Yeah, because the more we keep having such practices, it's actually the more our country rots and we pave more and more ways for, making those who desire to keep on being corrupt to keep up with the practice. Yeah, I hope this makes sense. Yes, thank you, Ashana, for the opportunity. Wishing you a good day.
Thank you, Amoti, for your submission. I would like to thank each and every one of you who has been here right from the start. I began this space at 8 p.m., so it's really only fair that we now close it. I thank you for your contributions. Definitely, this is not going to be the last time we try to make sense of what the struggle means or try to deconstruct it. I don't know, some of you just come to these spaces and all you do is you complain that people are either derailing the struggle by talking about things you do not want to hear. Please go ahead and host spaces. We shall also come to your spaces and try to contribute. This is a free platform. If you have the data, do not wait for Ashana or Good Girl or anyone to host a space, then you come and start complaining. Also do something. Stop complaining. You're just becoming like the guy we are trying to overthrow. He acts shocked about the state of affairs, yet he is the president. So do something. These conversations are important. The reason I felt like we should try to deconstruct the Ugandan struggle was in line with, all these fights that we've had and everything. At the end of the day, I don't actually see anything wrong with disagreements and fights. Yes, we should fight. Then we get back and try to understand what exactly is making us fight and if we are still on the same page. Because from this space, we all agree we are in a struggle of sorts, but it has different layers, different meanings for different people. And that is something we are going to we shall keep working on, trying to see that by the time we get the masses, I have heard the word masses being used, by the time we get everyone else, including my mother, my grandparents who are, in the village eating their local food and not bothered about the state of affairs because, they can wake up, go about their business and go back home. I would want them to also get to the point of sitting at the fireplace and we're having these kinds of conversations. So that's why we host these spaces. We shall definitely not get all the answers. This space was not about looking for answers, but trying to understand what the struggle means. And the struggle means different things to different people. That's why I keep emphasizing that whenever you are going to speak, you first speak from you yourself, you as Good God, you as Jacob. What do you understand? What does the struggle mean to you? Before you come and say, you see, for us, we are this and that. There are different levels at which people are affected by these things, and we need to understand them. Another thing that stood out from the space was emphasis on civic education, but we keep talking about civic education. For me, it's becoming like a buzzword. What do you mean civic education? Civic engagement and organizing. That sounds so NGO cliche. Maybe we need to also work on that. But until next time, we shall keep, I will let you know if I host another space to try and deconstruct. I think the next time I want us to deconstruct is democracy, because we are talking about democracy. But I think democracy, we only end up at looking at free and fair elections and a few rights here and there, and that is democracy. But like Jacob recommended, let's go and do some reading. I encourage us to read our history, not just the 1986 and moving forward, because what Museveni has done is to make it look like Uganda began in 1986. So as we are in the struggle for freedom, this guy who calls himself a freedom fighter also makes it look like Uganda began in 1986. But let's go back to our history. Let's interrogate the history. Let's read revolutionary literature. Let's see what other people have done. And let's keep sharing these ideas within ourselves, with our communities. If you have disagreements, then you move on, because at the end of the day, we are still on the same side. Struggle, and it means different things to different people. And we also need to win the moderates. I think I was having a chat with someone recently, and one of the interesting observations they made about activism is how we tend to only focus on the extreme, which is the extreme are our positions that we hold. yes, Museveni must go and all that. But then we forget the moderates, the people who are just in between and they're waiting to be, either we convince them to join us or they'll just keep enjoying, because at the end of the day, yes, they're affected, but not that much. And they're not politically active or aware. Those people who keep saying the politics, they've been Kwatako, even when they lose relatives to, bad roads and all this, they will still tell you that they've been Kwatako. So as we fight, as we try to make sense of this, we also need to know that we still have a bigger percentage of people to win to our side, to win to the struggle. But we must start by understanding, what is the struggle? What does the struggle mean for me? What does the struggle mean for the other person? Where is the common goal in this? And then we will work towards building a better Uganda. With that, we've come to the end of the space. Thank you so much for joining in. I am going to share the recording for those who missed. Maybe those who are here and came in late, you'll be able to get how the discussion began. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of the weekend.